Hello world, hello world. This is my first English podcast episode. My name is Kengo Ichiki. I'm living in Kanazawa, Japan. Where is Kanazawa? Kanazawa is sitting just in the middle of Japan. Mainly, we have 4 big islands, and Kanazawa is in the biggest island, and in the middle. In Japan, we call the regions sometimes front side and back side. The front side is facing to the Pacific Ocean, and the back side is the other side. Kanazawa is in the back side. We lived outside Japan roughly for 10 years, including US, Canada, and Europe. In Canada, we lived in Edmonton. There, someone said, "Where is Edmonton?" And they said that we're in the middle of nowhere, I think. I love that. I love that phrase. Literally in the middle of nowhere. I miss that sometimes. Kanazawa is, as I said, in the middle of Japan, but we may say Kanazawa is in the middle of nowhere in Japan. Something like that. Okay, so I started this podcast last month, just 1 month. In April, I tried to make several episodes. I put the title of this podcast channel as Music and Math Podcast in Japanese. I started this podcast in Japanese for Japanese people. Not intentionally, but that's my language. And this is purely my personal podcast channel. I have another podcast that is about circle activities. We are having currently online forum discussing with the AI. We call it Zenkei AI Forum. That runs for more than 3 years, I think. And in last 2 years, we're doing online Zoom meeting. And every month we have this forum. And I'm making podcast program out of those recordings of the meeting. That is another podcast, but this one, Music and Math Podcast, this is purely my stuff. I really want to do something personally, whatever I want to do. I just want to do that. That's the intention. And as I said, I started last month. So far, I have 6 episodes. And now, maybe you know, in Japan, we have biggest holiday week running from last Friday, actually. More than a week, 10 days roughly. For this time, I have several plans that I want to do if I have some time. This podcast is this year's main project for me. I really want to experiment this podcast possibilities in every aspect. And keep it in mind, I'm experimenting, trying several ideas. The background of this podcast starting, technically, I want to use a system called the Anchor's Music+Talk service, with which we can import music into a podcast program. So it's really like a radio program. We can legally refer to the favorite musics. When I saw press release of this, it was nothing new. 2 years ago, and from last year, I think, in Japan, we can use it finally. So, but still, 1 year ago, so nothing new. But I found just a couple of months ago when I'm looking for the information. That is one thing. And I said I already released 6 episodes, and 2 of them are doing this music-containing episodes. One is about I love jazz music, so one episode is focusing on Bill Evans, especially his playing of All of You. And another music episode is about the Japanese popular songs, which I'm not that expert at all, but I'm for that genre, I'm just a casual listener And that's fun. That's one direction of experimenting of my personal podcast. And the last episode I released just yesterday. By the way, I'm recording this on May 3rd, Tuesday. Time is running. I mean, my holiday is going, so I should be quick. Anyway, the last episode I released yesterday, Monday. That is another direction of experiment of this podcast format. That is, as I mentioned, I love jazz music, especially I love piano. And since I was a university student, I started practicing jazz personally by myself. Maybe because of that, my progress is really slow. Since then, how many years? Almost 30 years have passed, and still I'm struggling, learning in a very beginner level, I think. But I really want to do this, and for this podcast experimenting, I expose my playing incomplete, and I think that's terrible for listening to the general audience. It's not that, the intention is not that, but more like recording my current situation directly, honestly, to see by myself as well as others, and to motivate my daily practice. I just recorded and released one episode, that is piano practice session. That was fun. I don't know, it's also fun for the audience, but at least I'm satisfied with that. I'm happy with that. Yes, then of course I have regular episodes, 2 of them. So far, 2 Music+Talk episodes, 2 regular podcast episodes, and the 1 piano practicing episode. So the count is not 6, but 5. So there is another one I miss mentioning. That was the 3rd episode. That is a short format, more like a voice diary kind of format. I tried. This is experimenting by myself. So yeah, I tried that, and in the morning, I just came up something. Actually, that is similar stuff of piano practicing. In the morning, I just want to record my playing one song, then talk about the song. I name it my song. The title is La 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 in F. So far, 6 episodes cover those directions. And now, today, I'm talking this one. This is the other direction of experimenting podcast. That is, talking in English, talking to the world. So yeah, I just say at the beginning, hello world. And I mean it, I'm talking to you, to the world. I love Robert Glasper's Black Radio. So now the 3rd one released, and hello world phrase is taken from the first Black Radio. And I really love that introduction, lift off part, talk and piano. I love that. So in this episode, I don't know what should I talk. Okay, let's summarize my Japanese episode. As I mentioned, so far I have 6 episodes on this music and math podcast. Oh, before that, let me explain why I put music and math as a title of this podcast. Of course, I put it in the Japanese title of music and math, 音楽と数理. And that is taken from my book I wrote a couple of years ago. I've already mentioned we have a circle, Zenke AI Forum, and we have a meeting forum once a month. And at that time, a few years ago, some participant said she wants to publish a book. then I replied to her, okay, I saw some event on Twitter that is about a self-publishing event. If you're familiar with the Japanese cultural stuff, and if you're familiar with komike, I'm not familiar with that. But this self-publishing event I'm talking, it's not the comics, but technical writings. We call it Gijutsu-sho, and the event title is Gijutsu Shoten, implying the technical book exhibition kind of thing. Okay, this event has a few years history. That is, as a normal this komike culture spirit, they held in a real gathering event. But under this COVID situation, at the time, the organizers decided, let's have an online version. As I said, we are living far from Tokyo, where the event has been held before. This is a physical event. People brought their printing books into the place and selling there. That kind of event. But at the time, there is the first official online event. So everybody living in countryside in Japan, like me, like us, can join this self-publishing event for technical books. So I just propose, why don't we join that event? I also want to publish my own book. At the time, I don't have that. So within a month, in a few weeks, I need to write down one book and from scratch. I did that. And that book's title is The Music and Math. There is a subtitle, I put it. The subtitle is Music Transcription for Dummies kind of thing. More word-by-word translation. It's a musical transcription without skill. That's a subtitle. The content is mainly about it's in the middle of essay and the programming, and I've been a long time music lover, but I didn't have proper musical training. Just a few years in a childhood, from 6 to 10 kind of thing. But I love that, and I want to transcribe beautiful jazz musicians playing, especially pianists, Bill Evans, and harmony. Fascinated with harmonies, but catching harmony, multiple notes at the same time, getting those harmony is so difficult for me. But I also familiar with programming. I've been programming for a long time, since that was also like 10 or something. My father bought somehow. I don't know exactly why he bought that expensive personal computer at the time. That was 80s, early 80s, when I was 10 or something. So since then, in our house, we have a personal computer, and I can use that whenever I want. So I start coding since then, and I'm fascinated with that. So, like my 20s, when I met jazz music, I really want to transcribe harmonies, but my ear and my musical skill are so terrible, and I couldn't. If I go to the bookstore, there is the music scores, but so limited. But in front of us, we have music there, and everything is there. Why can't we extract the information of the harmony? And I have a computer, and I have a knowledge, math, Fourier Transforms. The sound is a superposition of many waves, and each waves have a frequency, and the frequency is the pitch of the note. And if we figure out which note is sounding in the harmony, we can reconstruct the harmony, which note he's playing. So I wrote a program and released. The name of the program is WAON, WAON. In Japanese, that is a harmony meaning. And I released that. It was when I was a grad student. So the quality is not super. It's decent, but it's not great. And with help of that program or others, I've been working on this musical research kind of thing for my hobby. Why I'm talking about this one? Okay, so yeah, about the title of this podcast. Yes, and when I start podcast about myself, my interest, I just thought that this book is more or less my core interest, and so I put it as a title. The reason why I want to talk to the world is there is a reason, because of this time. That's the biggest thing, 2022. Last few years, we met a series of turning in our history, I think. But when I look back the last few years, I'm worried a lot. We're turning in the wrong directions. Recently, I've read a book written by Rutger Bregman, Japanese translation. The original title is Humankind. I agree most of the part, I think. I'm not a specialist. I'm not very much interested in the social activities so far. I was a scientist. In a way, I admit that I'm in the ivory tower kind of thing. But now, the things are not good. And what I saw is it's basically the same written in this book, Humankind, I think. What I get from this book is that we have technologies, social networks, internet, media, multimedia. We have a YouTube channel right now. 20 years ago, we cannot imagine that. Only a TV broadcasting company can do that. But now, everybody can do that, streaming videos. But with those technologies, what we are doing, it looks like we mistakenly are using those technologies. So what is the right way to use the technology? I don't know. In this podcast, I see some kind of hope. This technology, very inefficient. What I want to do with this podcast in English, what is that? That's basically, I like to talk about myself. Nothing special, nothing great. I like to talk a small thing, daily things, of course interesting thing. Everyday life is the main ingredient of our lives. That is the important thing. The media, news medias, are looking for a big event, disasters, that cause some bad influences on us, I think. That is the reason, one of the reasons, at this time I start. We'll see. That's my intention, but things are not working in an intended way. Things are working by themselves. So we'll see. I will see what happened. Let me conclude this first podcast episode to the world. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy. If you're interested in the contents I put, even though I talk in Japanese, you may enjoy the music part at least. And please give me some feedback. Thanks for listening. See you from Kanazawa in the middle of nowhere in Japan.